Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer. I'm so glad you're here. Now today I am sharing 2 cards and a 3D project with you. Now the 2 cards are multi-fold cards, and this is something that you can do with basic supplies and create any kind of scene you want on them. I have some tips for you along the way on stenciling. Then at the end, I have a bonus project, this fun 3D camera that has a card inside. Many ways you can use this die set, and I will talk about those as we create. Let's get started with the 2 fold-out cards. Now for both of them, I'm using the new Tweet Life set from Concord and 9th. There's a stamp set and a stencil set that are sold together or separately. Now what's cool about both of these is that they allow you to create large birds or a series of 9 small birds. I will be using the large birds on the first card and the smaller birds on the second card. You gotta see how the smaller birds come together super fast. But with the large birds, you have options on changing up which way they face, which wings you put on, and so on. So I'm gonna start with that. This particular card will be a 5-panel fold-out card. My next one will be a 3. I'm using my Altenew scoreboard, and I have cut 2 pieces of white cardstock to be 8.5 by 5.5. And I'm scoring both of these pieces right down the middle at 4.25. This is how you would go about creating side folding cards. So you need 2 of those. You will also need a piece that is 5.5 inches tall and 4.25 inches wide. And I'm scoring at a 1/2 inch from each side. So we did a 1/2 inch on that side. I'll rotate it and do a 1/2 inch there too. Now when I fold along these score lines, I'm going to fold one back and one forward. So it's like this really tall Z when you look at it from the side. So I've folded one back, one forward using that bone folder, and there you can see that Z kind of look from the side. Now back to these others, I'm going to go ahead and fold those in half too. Again, these will fold to be 4.25 by 5.5 inch note cards. Now these 3 pieces will get connected together to create that 5-panel fold out card. So I'm going to kind of stand it up here so you can see how they will connect. I am not connecting them now because I still want to do all my stenciling and stamping first. But those little flaps on that middle piece will connect the 2 note cards, creating 5 panels when you open this card. This is a great card to do on display. You can do a scene on it. I'm doing large birds along this for a birthday card. Now just to make sure I don't mess things up, I did put numbers on each of those panels so I know which order they go in as I start creating. Let's start by creating the bird on panel number 1. This is the panel you'll see when the card is closed. So I have the folded piece that has panel 1 and 2 on it, but right now I'm focusing on that first panel. Over that, I have placed one of the large bird stencils from the Tweet Life stencil set, and I'm applying Concord and 9th ink over that. And I'm trying to put the ink a little bit heavier towards the bottom of the bird and lighter up towards his face. I have placed my panel onto an Altenew grip mat, which is holding the cardstock and the stencil in place as I do this. Now you'll have to forgive me because I'm kind of fumbling with some of my blending today. Because of my shoulder surgery, I can only use my right wrist and forearm a little bit. So blending is a bit tricky, but it was definitely worth it. So I did the body of that bird, and now you can choose any of the wings to add to it. And that allows you to create different looking birds on each of our panels. I have placed a white Simon Says stamp placement guide over the left-hand side of that stencil so we don't get ink where we don't want it. I'm kind of masking off some of the other wings. You could use paper here, but I like using this because I can wipe it off and clean it very easy to use again. And I'll use more of those placement guides. There's actually 2 in a pack later in this video. Before I add other elements onto that bird, I thought I would stamp my sentiment. I want to make sure that I have room for it. I'm using the Concord and 9th All About Cake stamp set. There is a coordinating die that creates a really cool layered cake, but I'm only using the stamp sentiments today. I decided to use my stamp wheel, but you can use any stamp positioner or acrylic block that you may have. And I'm folding that card inside out so just the front panel is showing. Remember, this is panel 1. Behind it now is panel 2. I have lined up Let's Celebrate on this, but I want to test it out first to make sure I have the positioning right. So I'm taking one of the Simon Says Stamp placement guides. This is the second one that comes in the set. This is clear with grid lines. It allows you to line things up, and here it allows me to stamp a practice image on it to make sure I like where it will be positioned on my card. Then I can remove that placement guide, ink up my stamp, and stamp it, and I know I'll be happy with it. I did decide to only stamp Celebrate first. So here I'm stamping the Celebrate onto our card. Then I will put that grid placement guide back on top. I just cleaned it off with a baby wipe. You can clean it better with the spray of rubbing alcohol. Now I'm placing Let's up against Celebrate, and I'm stamping that. The reason I stamped the words separately is I could position them closer together by stamping them separately than I could if I had them mounted at the same time on my stamp wheel. Totally up to you, but I like to have those words as close together as possible so it looks like a complete sentiment. Okay, so now it's time to add little feet to our bird. There are a bunch of different options for feet in the stamp set, which allows you to create different looking birds. I thought this one was fun because it looks like he's standing on the word Celebrate. I'm stamping this with a great dark gray ink. This is Mushroom from Concord and Ninth. Also, the Tweet Life stamp set has different detail images you can stamp to the belly or wing of the bird, and I did do the dots on the belly of this bird. Okay, so now I'm going to open this up and move on to panel number 2 and create another bird here. I will finish off the rest of the bird on the first panel a bit later. I'm saving the beak, eyes, and party hats till all the birds are stenciled. So here I am doing parsley and sprout ink. I did a light amount of ink over the whole bird and darker towards the bottom of him. And then I can choose a different wing to add to this so that it has a different look than our first one. And something that's fun about these stencils, there are 2 bird body stencils, 2 large birds. You can ink them on one side or ink the other side, and that'll give you 2 different birds facing different directions. So lots of different ways you can mix and match here. After I have inked up my bird, I can stamp some words around him and also add the feet. And I will continue to do the same process with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th panels of this multi-fold card. Now I'm not going to show this in the video just to save some time, but I just use various colors of ink with those same bird layering stencils. I did choose to make a rainbow of birds here, but you could do any kind of scene going across a multi-fold card like this. Next, let's create party hats to go on our birds. These are die cut pieces, and I actually used a pie slice die to create them. So here's another new die set from Concord and Ninth. This is the Sweet as Pie stamp set and die set. You can buy them together or separately. This set is adorable. You can see I've already started creating some pie die cut pieces here. So many different ways you can layer them and create different types of pies, different sizes. You can take a little slice of the pie out. So much fun. I hope to use this in a video soon. You can see I've already started. But for today, I used the triangle pie slice die to create my little party hats. I like to look at my dies in different ways so I can get more life out of them. I also used a die from the set that creates little whipped creams to put on top of your pie slices, and I'll use that for my party hat topper. By the way, these 2 heart dies in this set that have the details on it that go great for adding to the top of your pie would also be great as other accents for other theme cards. So I used the pie slice die to create party hats to match each of my birds. Now I'm using a confetti stamp from that All About Cake birthday stamp set and just stamping that on there for tone on tone just to add some interest to each of the party hats. I thought adding a party hat to each of the birds would go along with this birthday card theme. You could add balloons or anything you want to these birds. Okay, so off screen, I also did stamp the beaks with black ink, and all of our birds have feet done with mushroom ink. Now I'm adding the little party hats. We have the pie slice for the party hat and the little bit of whipped cream die cut for the top of the party hat. And again, I did those in colors that match the birds. So we would have kind of a rainbow of birds going across this multi-fold card. Now for the eyes, you could stamp them using the stamp set, but I chose to instead use flat glitter confetti from Trinity Stamps. This comes in different colors. I'm using the black glitter for the eyes. So since these are flat, it won't add much bulk to this multi-fold card, and it does add a little bit of sparkle. Now it's time to put all of our panels together. So I have them in order here. And remember that third panel, the middle one with the yellow bird, has the two little flaps sticking off the side. On the front of the left flap, I'll put strong adhesive. I'm using liquid adhesive, but you could use tape too. And I'll put that flap to the back of our second panel, lining up the edges. Now you do want to make sure that stays secure because this is what connects everything together for the multi-fold feature. Now on the front of our flap on the right of the third panel, I will put some strong adhesive and have that glued to the back left of the fourth panel. So now all of these panels are connected together and they will all fold up nicely to fit into a regular envelope. So the overall size of this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but look at how it opens up to show all of those panels, and you could create any scene you want. Now for the matching envelope, I thought I'd add some detail to the envelope flap. I'm using the new Concord and 9th basket weave card front die. This does not cut on the outside edge, so it's great to use on an envelope flap or on the front of your note card. It just does kind of a faux stitching detail, and I love it. I think it just makes the envelope a little extra special. So let's look at the completed card. You can see it'll fit nicely into a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch envelope, but it folds open to show all of these little birdies. This will stand up nicely on display. You could write your personal sentiment underneath the pink bird on the final flap, or you could write it on the back of the card. Now I did add some of the Trinity Stamps flat glitter confetti in the silver color just to add some sparkle to the background, but you could add balloons, little streamers, anything you want to this birthday themed card. So I was careful not to add anything with much dimension to these so that it'll flatten nicely. So now that is a 5-panel multi-fold card. Let's do a second example, but this time just do 3 panels. Really easy, and you can use with a variety of products you have. Now I'm starting with a 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 inch piece, and I'm scoring that right down the middle at 4 1/4 and folding there. I also have a piece that is 4 3/4 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches tall, and I'm doing one score line at a 1/2 inch, and I'll fold along that and reinforce it with my bone folder. These are the only 2 pieces you need to create a 3-panel multi-fold card. So they'll hook together like this, and it'll stand up nicely on display. I put little post-its noting that we have the first, second, and third panel so I don't get confused as I add my little birds to them. We're going to start with the first panel, which will be the front of the card. I will actually be doing the same thing on all 3 panels, just changing up the colors I use. Now the other 2 stencils in this Tweet Life stencil set create a series of 9 birds at once. The first stencil does the body, the second stencil does the wings. Now you could do all 9 the same color, you could do all 9 different colors, but what I decided to do was 3 of pink down the left, 3 of orange down the middle, and 3 of yellow down the side. So I am using my Simon Says Stamp placement guide there just to mask off the other birds. I'm using the same inking technique as I did before, where I do darker ink towards the bottom of the bird and then kind of blend to lighter at the top edge. Now here I also needed to mask off the other birds so I could get the middle column there, and I used some Altenew satin tape to do that. Now again, to save time, you could do all of the bodies of the birds the same color, and then do all of the wings the same color, and you can quickly have a whole card front done with the 9 birds, and you just stamp on the beaks and the feet and stuff, which you'll see is very quick to do here in a moment. But I thought I'd go with the rainbow going across this, so I'm going to have 9 different colors of birds. So after I did the first panel, the front panel, now it's time for the second panel. I'm lining up that same body stencil on the second panel, and I'll do 3 columns of different color inks. Now the cool thing about these stencils is there are little marks, so you can easily line it up with your card panel, and you know that the second stencil will also line up then too. So now I'm on to the third panel, and I did that in 3 more colors, and you can see how we have a rainbow going across. Now we can move on to the second stencil, again just lining up the little tick marks in the corner, and I can be sure the wings will line up with the body. Now keep in mind, you could do a lot of extra things to these birds. You could maybe add additional stencil of maybe some little dots over the birds, or you could stamp additional things on them. You could add balloons to them. Lots of different ways you can use them. You can use them for different occasions too, but I am again going to do birthday. So you'll see I'll add party hats once again. And I did the same thing for the third panel, and now I have all 3 panels done with the bodies and the wings. Now it's time to stamp on the beak, eye, feet, and other details for the birds, and Concord and Ninth made this very easy. There are 3 stamps that line up with each of the 3 rows on the card. So I'm lining up the first row here with the top row of birds, and then I'll do the second row over on the right-hand side. You could just do them on the same side if you wanted to. In fact, you could put all 3 stamps together to stamp all 3 rows at once if you wanted. And I'm stamping that with black ink. And look how quickly and easily it lines up and stamps those bird details. 3 cheers to Concord and Ninth, because I think this works so well, and I hope they do more like this. Okay, so I did the same thing for the third panel too, lining up those images and stamping them. And now I'm putting glue on the front of that little flap on the third panel, and I'll glue that to the back of the second panel. And this creates our 3-panel multi-fold card. So the first card had 5, this has 3. Now for this one, you could have left maybe a row of the birds uninked and stamped on that third panel, leaving a place to write your personal message, but I instead will put that on the back of the card. Next, I am adding party hats to each of my birds. I'm actually using the beak stamp from the stamp set. This is the beak that lines up with the big birds, but I'm using them as a party hat on my little birds. And I added a matching party hat to each of the birds. I also used some of the little hooray and happy birthday messages from the same Tweet Life stamp set to stamp a little scattered over the background. Now for the front of the card, I added a happy birthday sentiment that's white heat embossed on black cardstock. And it's using the Bravo stamp set that you see there on the screen. This has a coordinating die set that's fantastic. It makes little banners, ward banners. Really great set. I've used it a lot off screen for school stuff, but today I'm just using the happy birthday at the center of my card. I again used the basket weave die to add details to the envelope flap, and here we have our completed card. I did use silver flat glitter confetti at the top of each of the party hats for a little bit of sparkle, and I put a piece of light gray cardstock on the back where I'll write my personal sentiment. But keep in mind you could have skipped one row of the birds on the third panel and written it there instead. Here's a closer look at all of the details. It's surprising how fast this comes together. You could definitely save time by doing all the birds one color or only doing one panel. But I think it's fun that it opens up to show the rainbow. I hope these examples show that multi-fold cards are easy to make and you can add any scene to them that you want. Before we go, I have a bonus project. This was made using some new Concord and Ninth products, and I really wanted to share them with you because I put one together and thought it was so much fun, so I'm including it here. And I was excited because I thought of another way to use this die set besides as a camera, and I'll share that for you. I always like to get more out of one set. So this is the new Concord and Ninth Picture Perfect die set and stamp set. You can buy them together or separately, and they are fantastic. Now the die set creates a camera, but it also creates little photo scenes that you can use with the camera or separately. You could even just use them on the front of a card. I will be creating a camera that holds a little mini card and gift card. Now to create the camera, you need to cut 2 of the 2 dies that you see here. So 2 die cuts of each. And I'm cutting it from Concord and Ninth mushroom cardstock. Now the die creates little score lines, so all you have to do is fold along those, and it'll be easy to assemble this. Let's first create what I call the drawer that pulls out. There's a tiny little flap here, and you're going to put strong adhesive on this. I like to use liquid adhesive, and glue it to the front of the drawer. Then you'll do the same thing with the other piece. Put adhesive on the little flap and fold it to glue up to the front of the drawer. Now these 2 pieces will get glued to each other to form the drawer of our little camera, or you can make it a gift box. On the bottom of one of them, I'll put some strong adhesive and also adhesive on the little flaps. I will then fit these together. See how they fit together nicely? And I'll press the glue of those little flaps together, press the center down, and there we have the drawer for our camera. Now we next need to create the outside of that drawer. So this is kind of the holder for it. You have these 2 pieces here that you will just fold along the score lines. And I like that the die creates little details on the sides too. Now we'll put glue on the inside flaps on one of these pieces. I like to use liquid adhesive so I can wiggle them in place, but you could use double-sided tape. Just make sure it's a glue that you trust will hold well. Now I'll take the other piece, flip that over and put it right on the inside and fold those glue flaps onto it. So this kind of creates an open-sided box that our drawer can easily slide in and out of. Now here's the best part. These two pieces alone could be used to create a little gift box. You could put a little card in there, you could put a gift card in there, tie a ribbon around it, add little stamping to it or little die cuts. So that's another way to use this die set. However, if you do the next steps and use the other die pieces, you can create a little camera. Now this die for the camera creates a piece that makes it very easy to follow. It has score lines, detailed lines, and it also tells you where the glue goes. So you just die cut it from cardstock and fold along the score lines, and you have the top of the camera formed. Before I add the top of the camera to the base, where that little drawer is, I thought I'd add some other details. There's a die that creates little stripes, little decorative stripes, for the front of the camera, but I decided to create my own. I just cut little cardstock strips to form a rainbow, and I'll glue that right onto the top of our drawer, so right at the top center there. Next, I use the dies in the die set to create like the lens and the buttons and so on, just following the Concord and 9th instructions. There is a little slit die that you can use on the base of your little drawer here, like on the front, and you can actually have something slide in and out there from that little slit, but I just die cut black cardstock and glued that there for decoration. Now back to that piece that creates the top of our camera. Now remember, the die creates little marks on it. So you just have to line up the lens right in the markings, line up the button right in the markings. Very easy to do. And again, Concord and 9th has so many great examples on their website that make it easy to follow. So I just added those to the front, and now we just need to glue this to our camera base. Now there are two little flaps at the end, and they say glue on it, which makes it perfect because you know exactly where to put the glue. This little flap will get glued to the back top of our camera base. Then the other flap you'll put glue on also, and just fold that down to meet on the top middle of the camera base. And there you formed your little camera, and it has that little drawer that will pull out, and you can add anything that you want in there. This would be super fun to really make a gift card present even more special. Instead of just throwing it in a card, you can put it in this little drawer, and that's what I thought I'd do today. And isn't this little camera the cutest thing ever? All right, now for the little mini card that I'm going to put on the inside, I am using the dies and stamp set from the Concord and 9th Picture Perfect bundle to create this, and it's very simple to do. And in fact, I'm following one of their examples because I thought it was so cute. I'm using these two dies together to cut from white cardstock to cut the frame for our photo. And I'm gluing that onto the front of a little mini card that I made of the same size. Now you could absolutely use any products that you have on this little mini card inside that little frame, but I thought I would use the die set to create this little mountain scene. Very easy to do, just die cut them and glued them together, layering them on a solid square for the blue sky, added little clouds and trees. It's fun to put little die cuts together like this, but if you prefer to stamp, you could definitely stamp a scene using the Picture Perfect stamp set. After I have my scene assembled, I'll trim off the excess and then glue this right into the opening of our frame. And finally, I'll stamp a sentiment at the bottom of the frame. So let's see everything together. So we have our little camera here and our little mini card, and I can put a gift card in there and put both of these into the little drawer of the camera, and it makes such a special gift. You could add a little tag to it or stamp or write the person's name on the top. Just a fun, unique gift. And remember, you could skip the top of the camera and just use the base for a fun little gift box that you can decorate in many different ways. And you can use some of the other dies just to create little scenes like the one you see here in the frame and add that to the front of a card. I appreciate that there's a lot of elements included in the die set, so it can be used many different ways. I just thought this was so cute that I had to include it in this video and share it with you. So that's what I have for you today, those two multi-fold panel cards and the bonus camera card. Now, if you're interested in the products I used, I always link them below in my YouTube description so you can check there. And at the end, I will link to a couple other related videos if you're looking for more ideas. I thank you for spending this time with me. Always, always, always thankful. And I hope you have a wonderful day.